I'm going to share with you an essay which was written in 2007, ancient news, I guess, by a person named Malcolm Nance. Now, Malcolm Nance was a former SERE instructor for Navy SEALs. And I'm going to read his essay in its entirety because it deserves much attention, particularly today. Now, for those of you not familiar with the SERE program, here is it's an acronym, it's a military acronym, and it stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. So, it's been used in military training, and basically it provides personnel, both of the Department of Defense and certain contractors, specifically in the Air Force, and it pertains to a training in evading capture, teaching you survival skills. And it came about because of the Korean War, and it was first implemented by the Air Force at the end of the Korean War, and it was then extended to the Vietnam War, and then into the Army and Navy. And this is a training program for most high-level personnel, basically air crew and special forces, in order to train them to resist certain techniques used by the enemy. So here is this essay, and this is very definitely going to run into two parts. So if you don't have the patience to listen to this, then please tune out right away, because it basically won't make any sense if you just listen to the first part. And I will post a link to this entire essay as well. I'd like to digress, and this is Malcolm Nance speaking. I'd like to digress from my usual analysis of insurgent strategy and tactics to speak out on an issue of grave importance to the Small Wars Journal readers. We as a nation are having a crisis of honor. Last week, Attorney General nominee Michael McCaskey refused to define waterboarding terror suspects as torture. On the same day, MSNBC television pundit and former Republican Congressman Joe Scarborough quickly spoke out in its favor. On his morning television broadcast, he asserted, without any basis in fact, that the efficacy of the waterboard is a viable tool to be used on Al-Qaeda suspects. Scarborough said, "For those who don't know, waterboarding is what we did to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who is the Al-Qaeda number 2 guy in the planned 9/11 attacks." And he talked. He then speculated, this is Scarborough speculating here, if you ask Americans whether they think it's okay for us to waterboard in a controlled environment, 90% of Americans will say yes. Sensing that what he was saying sounded extreme, he then claimed he did not support torture, but that waterboarding was debatable as a technique. That's the debate, Scarborough said. Is waterboarding really torture? I don't want the United States to engage in that type of behavior or torture that Senator McCain had to endure. In fact, waterboarding is just the type of torture then Lieutenant Commander John McCain had to endure at the hands of the North Vietnamese. As a former master instructor and chief of training at the U.S. Naval Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School, SERE in other words, in San Diego, California, I know the waterboard personally and intimately. This is Malcolm Nance speaking. SERE staff were required to undergo the waterboard at its fullest. I was no exception. I have personally led, witnessed, and supervised waterboarding of hundreds of people. It has been reported that both the Army and Navy SERE schools' interrogation manuals were used to form the interrogation techniques used by the Army and the CIA for its terror suspects. What was not mentioned in most articles was that SERE was designed to show how evil, totalitarian, an enemy would use torture at the slightest whim. If this is the case, then waterboarding is unquestionably being used as a torture technique. The carnival-like he said, she said of the legality of enhanced interrogation techniques has become a form of doublespeak, worthy of a catch-22. Having been subjected to all of them, I know these techniques, if in fact they're actually being used, are not dangerous when applied in training for short periods. However, when performed with even moderate intensity over an extended time on an unsuspecting prisoner, it is torture without a doubt. Couple that with a waterboarding and the entire medley not only shock the conscience, as the statute forbids, it would absolutely terrify you. Most people cannot stand to watch a high-intensity kinetic interrogation. One has to overcome basic human decency to endure watching or causing the effects. The brutality would force you into a personal moral dilemma between humanity and hatred. It would leave you to a question the meaning of what it is to be an American. We live at a time where Americans, completely uninformed by an incurious media and enthralled by vengeance-based fantasy television shows like 24, are actually cheering and encouraging such torture as justifiable revenge for the September 11 attacks. Having been a rescuer in one of those incidents and personally affected by both attacks, I am bewildered at how casually we have thrown off the mantle of world leader in justice and honor. Who have we become? Because at this juncture, after Abu Ghraib and other undignified exposed incidents of murder and torture, we appear to have become no better than our opponents. With regards to waterboard, I want to set the record straight so the apologists can finally embrace the fact that they condone and encourage torture. Now, this is an article written by a former Navy SEAL instructor, which specifically was an instructor for the SERE program. Part 2 is going to follow because this man has very much something to say. Thanks for listening.